Clare Lopez here with you at the United West. And I wanted to provide a little bit of an update on some of the news reporting that is going around about the Israeli Defense Forces attacks against hospitals. And I wanted to clarify, first of all, which hospitals, why the IDF would target hospitals, and what is going on currently. So I will give credit, first of all, to an individual who posts on Twitter. Yes, I know it's called X now, but Twitter, and goes by the name of Captain Allen, at Captain CPT Allen History is the reference there. And whomever this is did a really fine job over the last day or so of explaining what international law has to say about targets in a war like this one that the Israeli Defense Forces is waging against the Hamas jihadis, and what is permissible and what is not permissible, is illegal under international law. So let's focus in on just one of the hospitals in particular, and that's the Al-Shifa Hospital, which is located in Gaza City. That is towards the northern part of the Gaza Strip. Now, as we know, the Hamas jihadis have one of their main command and control centers located in floors underneath the Al-Shifa Hospital, multiple floors underneath the Shifa Hospital underground. And above is the hospital with doctors and patients and staff and maybe others taking refuge there. So what under international law is right and what is wrong or could be wrong about that hospital as a target? So referring again and with all credit to Captain Allen, what matters is the intention of the attacking forces, very important. And international law recognizes that civilians are often killed during war. And most of the time, these deaths are not actually indicative of a war crime. Yes, they're sometimes called collateral damage, but that doesn't make them a war crime. Now, the strike, again, has to be intended to target a military objective. And so it would be unlawful to attack a target with the knowledge and intent of targeting civilians. That would be a war crime. Now, this whole subject refers to the Geneva Conventions of 1977. And the Israeli Defense Forces are very, very attentive, abiding by these Geneva Conventions. Now, unfortunately, Hamas, on the other hand, under international law, Hamas deliberately turns civilian targets into military targets with the intention that civilians would be human shields and would die, and that they, then Hamas, would use those civilian deaths as propaganda against the Israelis. Now, Hamas deliberately places weapons caches in and under schools, hospitals, mosques, and so forth. When they do that under international law, that makes those targets, ordinarily civilian facilities, it turns them into military targets, lawful military targets under international law. Now, that doesn't mean that the IDF just has carte blanche to go bombing any clinic, hospital, mosque, or apartment building that they think might be holding munitions or ammunition. They have to take a lot of things into consideration, and they do. The IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, rely on a cadre of lawyers who are not in the IDF chain of command. They are separate and outside of it, and they are consulted on targets like these that Hamas has turned into military targets before the IDF is given the go-ahead to strike against them. Now, what has to happen is that the IDF has to balance, determine whether the anticipated military advantage of a successful strike against, let's say, a hospital would outweigh the anticipated loss of civilian life. And they do this with a great deal of care and of responsibility. So they do it on a strike by strike basis, not just some general, ruling. What Hamas or what Israel needs to determine is that the intended or the anticipated impact of the military strike may cause civilian casualties, but is the military advantage so significant that it warrants carrying out the strike anyway, in which case it is lawful under international law. Now, it matters what is inside of that target. We're talking about the Al-Shifa hospital here. So in any case, what has to happen at the Al-Shifa and other hospitals, and is happening as we are speaking, is that they are being evacuated. The Al-Shifa hospital is being evacuated of its civilian doctors, nurses, personnel, staff, and the patients. And they are being moved to other locations. Now, of course, Israel has warned the Hamas civilians to leave Gaza City, which is located in the north, to leave the northern part of the Gaza Strip beginning many days ago. And that, with an empty hospital now, leaves the Hamas jihadis in their command and control headquarters underneath the hospital, in floors underneath, 4 or 5 different levels, surrounded by the IDF, which now will take the steps it needs to take to eliminate this threat, the threat preventing Hamas from ever again having the capacity to carry out some kind of repeat of the attacks of the Shabbat massacre of October the 7th, 2023. This would be an example of the kind of care that Israel and the IDF take to avoid civilian casualties whenever they can, and in keeping with the Geneva Conventions and laws, international laws of proportionality. And I hope that this has been helpful for our listeners and our viewers as well. Thank you.